Hi, and welcome to the Oral Wealth, Prosperity and Practice podcast. My name is Jackson Sadler.
And I'm Brian Swilling.
And this podcast was created to help dentists and other healthcare professionals navigate the business and financial side of practice, because clinical excellence is just one piece of the puzzle. Brian and I, we met and we decided that we wanted to work on this podcast because we separately recognized that there was a gap in the financial literacy education amongst most professionals, specifically healthcare professionals working within dentistry. And we both know people who have made expensive mistakes in their practice early on in their careers. And we wanted to normalize conversations about, personal finance and money and the mistakes that people make specifically within the field of dentistry. So this podcast is mostly directed towards dental students who are preparing for practice, recent graduates who have just gotten into practice, associates who are thinking about ownership, people who have been out in practice for years who are planning their financial future as far as retirement and estate planning, wealth management, and really anyone who wants to learn more about financial literacy and just better work-life balance. The listeners of the podcast can expect different question and answer sessions. We'll do deep dives about financial literacy as well. We're also going to go into real case breakdowns and guest interviews. So at this point, we want to let everybody, all of our new listeners, get to know us a little bit. So Brian's going to start off telling us a little bit about himself.
Yes, welcome everybody. I'm excited to be here for the first episode. This has been in my mind, this idea of a podcast focused on healthcare professionals and focused on helping people live a fulfilled life for a while. So I'm very excited to be here. To give a little bit of background of why Brian in this podcast. I grew up in a family of dentists. My dad and sister are both dentists, actually practicing in the same area I grew up in outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Everybody asked me, well, why aren't you a dentist? And I was like, well, it was never really a passion, but it's funny. I ended up in dentistry anyway, kind of on the outside. So I grew up and continue to have, family. Like my dad just sold his practice, semi-retired. So I've been through the whole cycle as a kid of a dentist, all the way into the financial planner for my dad as he exited, as he went through his succession plan. So it's kind of weird. It comes full circle, but that's also why I have a passion for this, the industry and the healthcare industry in general. That's the beginning. I went to school actually at UNC Charlotte. Go Niners.
Go Niners.
Yeah, go Niners. For all those, 3,000 fans out there for the Niners.
They're going to turn it around.
This is your place.
The season's coming. It's coming.
So, I went in for finance, economics, and I actually had a minor in psychology, which comes in very useful.
Hey, I'm a major in psychology. Did we know that?
Yeah,
okay,
we knew
nice.
that.
Okay, cool.
My first job out of college was in New York City, which was surprising. So on-campus hiring, grew up outside of Charlotte, went to UNC Charlotte, moved to New York City. Exciting times, 11 years in various banks on Wall Street, learning, crash course in everything financial services. But I had a passion for entrepreneurship. And that's when I met my wife in New York City. And we had a 3-month-old at the time. I decided I wanted to start a financial planning practice focused on dentists. So that's when we packed up, we moved, closer to my family, which luckily my wife was cool with that. And I started this financial planning practice. My practice is called NaviPath Financial, and we like to navigate your path to financial independence. And a big focus of that group is dentistry, healthcare professionals, and owners in general. There's a lot, once you become an owner, there's a lot more strategies you can use around financial planning and tax planning. that's been going on 10 years. Almost 2 years ago, we actually launched the second NaviPath, which is a tax accounting, bookkeeping, and outsourced CFO business.
Mm-hmm.
So the NaviPath brand can now cover all financial needs for dentists and definitely practice owners.
Very cool.
We started the first business because I knew there was a need, as we mentioned. There was just a massive need for accessible advice. And in later episodes, we'll talk more about how I structure that accessible advice. But then I realized there was also a need for collaboration between the tax accounting professional and the financial planner. And I was struggling to find it. So we created it.
Very cool.
So that's what brings me here today. I'm excited to educate all our fans out there, all the listeners. And
so what do you do when you're not educating people and building
good.
businesses?
Well, we were talking last night, right? And I had to rush out to go to coach my son's soccer team. So a lot of my life is, working with my partners on the two businesses, family time. And a lot of that family time is coaching or, coaching my son's basketball or soccer team or driving my daughter to her theater practice. My son is 8 and my daughter is 10. So that is a big part of my day-to-day life.
Sure.
Other things, I was an inaugural season ticket holder for the Charlotte 49ers football team. So when it's football season, we try to go to as many of those games as we can. Big college basketball fan. Charlotte has been down recently.
Go Heels.
Yeah. Go Duke. Which is disappointing for both of us this season. I like to spend time outdoors. Horrible golfer. Anything, mountain biking, hiking. It's hard to find time for all the stuff I love to do.
Sure.
And my passions keep going, but I'm trying to get rid of golf, but
it's not going anywhere.
I can't.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of it.
I wish somebody would ask me to go mountain biking for business purposes.
Nah, we're going golfing, my friend.
Yeah. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Probably missing a lot of key things. But what I want to be, especially with the dynamic Jackson and I have, we want to be relatable to a variety of listeners, different backgrounds, different experiences, different life stages. So that's enough about the Brian. Let's talk about Jackson.
Well, hi everyone. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, my name is Jackson Sadler. I am an oral and maxillofacial surgeon practicing in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area, specifically in Gastonia, North Carolina. I am originally from right outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Did my undergraduate training at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. Go Seahawks. They made it to the tournament this year.
There you go.
Yeah, we always love to see it. And I did my dental school training at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Again, go Heels. After that, I was very fortunate to be accepted into a residency program at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Spent 6 years there doing my oral and maxillofacial surgery training before I moved back to the Charlotte area just to be closer to family and, get my practice started. I'm currently working with a dental service organization associated practice. I've been there for just under 3 years. It'll be 3 years in July. And Brian and I were connected by some mutual acquaintances, some friends that we have, and just kind of started talking about this idea. And as he mentioned, he, through his years of experience, recognized that there has been an ongoing need for further financial literacy education, and that's been something that's been important to me for a long time. So I've always been curious about the business side of dentistry, because a lot of what I heard early on in dental school and also in my career was that, yes, the business side of dentistry doesn't get covered in dental school extensively for most dental schools. There are some schools who definitely do that, who have MBA associated programs and things like that. But for most people coming out of school, you're just kind of told, you'll figure it out as you go. And to be fair, that may have been the case historically, where you could get out and you could get a loan from a bank and you could go hang a shingle and then patients would just start coming in. But the landscape of dentistry has changed significantly, and it's evolving very rapidly. So this, figure it out as you go strategy, while dentistry is a very stable field and can sustain that for a lot of people, it's not ideal. And there are a lot of missed opportunities. There are a lot of pitfalls that people fall into that are avoidable. And that's, one of the things that I'm passionate about trying to learn for myself and also pass along to my colleagues, because I understand what that experience of getting into graduate school and going through graduate school and trying to navigate your career and, do the best you can to take care of your patients and do good treatments and provide good care for them. And then to go home at the end of the day and be stressed out because you're not sure about your own financial future. I just don't want that for anybody. So that's how I got here with Brian. And, just outside of practice, very similarly, I like to golf. I've been golfing for years. I'm not as good as it as I would like to be, but we're working on it. I also love being out in nature. Any excuse I can get to go hiking or go see a new national park, I try to take advantage of. When I'm stuck at home, just lots of exercising and watching documentaries for the most part. But I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the journey and seeing where this takes us and how much we can learn from each other and how much we can hopefully learn from and interact with all of the listeners. We want you guys to be active participants as well, and we want to address some of the things that are concerning for you.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a couple things we need to plan. We need to plan, obviously, the golf trip, but we should also plan a board meeting in a national park.
We can. Do you know, I actually, coming back from Isle of Palms this past weekend where I was golfing, I went past a national park that I didn't realize was there. I'll find it.
Isle of Palms. So that would be middle of nowhere until you get to Columbia.
Out there. Yeah.
I don't know if we go there. I prefer the mountains at this point. Yeah. So on Jackson's point, like the why of the podcast, and we'll go into more of deeper in the why for the next episode. But you mentioned some things like when we were talking in the past and kind of how your experiences, but like, and we'll talk about this in future episodes, but you kind of had an upper hand on most dentists because
for sure.
You went through a typical practice management program, but you had mentors that highlighted pitfalls on your way. And we'll have a whole episode on the importance of mentors, but tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of led you to learn more about.
Yeah, sure. So, specifically, I did have one or two interactions with classmates of mine who, I would just kind of be offhandedly talking about something. As Brian mentioned, I've been very, very fortunate, and the more time goes on, the more I recognize the value of mentors and mentorship, being a mentor myself for other people who may not have had access to information or people that I've had access to. One of my first mentors was my dad, and he happened to be a general dentist. He's retired at this point, still very involved in organized dentistry. But, he would just from time to time tell me about various things that I needed to be aware of, whether that was within dentistry or, planning for my future, managing my finances, participating in investments, with the stock market and other investments outside of that as well. And I would be talking about these things. And I remember at least on two occasions, some of my very good close friends would say something to the effect of, I wish I had someone to tell me these things. And for whatever reason, that just really sat with me because, these are people I care about. These are people that have taking on the burden of the financial burden of going to a graduate school program,
which is not cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap at all, and it's only getting, if trends continue, it's only getting more expensive.
Yeah.
So you take on the financial burden of attending a graduate school, and then you also take on the psychological and emotional burden that we were talking about that goes along with taking care of other people. And it's a very rewarding field, but it's not always easy. There are very, very frequently very difficult days, and I actually just saw a study that said that I think it was around 50% of men and 65% of women feel symptoms of burnout multiple times on a weekly basis.
And is that dentistry specific?
Yes, it was dentistry specific. I can find that study too. Yeah. We can talk about that one.
We'll put it in the show notes.
For sure. Absolutely. But, just hearing my friends, these people that I know, that I care about, I know their families, I've been in their weddings, hearing them say these things, it was like, of course I want you to know these things. Of course I want good things for you and your family. Of course I want you to benefit from the work that you have done and the work that you continue to do. And so I just got very, very curious about the business of dentistry, especially, again, with the changing landscape, the ever-growing presence of dental service organizations, the shift that seems to be happening among new grads who are kind of trending towards working in those dental service organizations for a lot of different reasons, but some of them very beneficial, advantageous reasons, including easier work-life balance. You don't have to worry about administrative things quite as much, but there are also drawbacks to those things. You lose some autonomy, you lose some decision-making ability that manifests itself in different ways. And like Brian was saying before, there can be a lot of benefits to practice ownership and the things that go along with that. So that's pretty much at least the catalyst for my involvement in this to this degree.
Yeah. And, Jackson and I were introduced and we were talking about a project that you were working on with the ADA, which we'll go into more detail about in the second episode. But, we met at a bar after work, had a drink, and
Shirley Temple.
Yeah, Shirley Temple, non-alcoholic. Watch it. I know you're listening, Mom. So we just kind of hit it off on, my experience is it's hard to talk about money.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And it's hard to learn about money with all the noise out there. Mm-hmm. Right. Financial news is literally unwatchable unless you want to cause stress in your life, right? Sure. Especially given the current market.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially recently.
Yeah. Like, don't watch, my chief investment officer calls it fear porn.
Sure.
Like, it's literally, like, news in general is fear porn.
You just can't look away.
Financial news is even worse. And we could do a whole episode on this, but like, our brains are more likely to tune into fear than they are to positive news. Right. And that's why the news does that. It's addictive. Mm-hmm. It creates a dopamine response in our brain. So like, think about it. If you're stressed about money and then all you see is stress whenever you turn on the TV, or if you Google it, like, it's almost impossible to find reliable information.
Sure.
And, it sounds like from your experience, and from my experience, like, dentists are more likely to ask other dentists mm-hmm. financial questions rather than a financial professional mm-hmm. because of that nervousness, because of that concern to admit to somebody that's not in their field that they don't know something.
Yeah.
So that's another reason, like our joint passion for providing access to the information people need to live a prosperous, fulfilled life is what this podcast is about. Like, we want this to be relatable, easy to listen, easy to understand concepts. Some points it'll go deeper. Some points, we'll need to pull it back. But we want it to be approachable. We want the topics about, money, life, finance, using your money to create an ideal life. Wherever you are in your profession, we want that to be accessible to everybody. And the podcast form is a great medium to give access to professionals that can provide them the information they need to kind of thrive in life. And life as a dentist or a healthcare professional, or, if you're a listener that's outside, we outside that kind of dental healthcare, practice owner area, like, this should still be relatable, right? It all sounds very different, but the topics we're going to talk about and the issues,
the principles,
the principles are very similar. This is going to be a great podcast. So make sure
it'll be great. It's going to be a great learning experience.
Yes.
Like, I think honestly, I'm excited to see how much I learned from our discussions.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how much better we become as podcasters.
Yeah. Yes.
It's going to get
starting out amazing. I think we're doing a great job.
At least a 3 out of 10.
Yes. At least a 3 out of 10 as our producer will tell us after this. But, I think as we're getting close to wrapping this up, this is the first episode 1, intro to the Oral Wealth Prosperity and Practice podcast. For all the listeners out there, I want to thank you. Thank you for Jackson for offering to do this with me, and same here. Like, I think this is going to be a great combo. Make sure you subscribe,
follow,
follow on wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on social media. We're on most of the social channels, my businesses personally, and Jackson also. Those links will be in the show notes. Episode 2 will be focusing on deeper into really why this podcast and the structure of this podcast. And then we'll start going into more financial topics. Please comment, provide suggestions.
Yeah.
Because we want this to be what you want to hear. So the more feedback, the more concerns you have. If you have a concern, send us to us on social, or email. Our contact information, our email will be also in the show notes. So whatever your preferred communication method,
just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, stealing it from Nike, or wealth, just do it. So that will not be our tagline.
That's not going to make it. That's not going to make the cut. There's going to be some legal implications associated with that.
So again, thank you, Jackson. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
And we look forward to having you on the next time.
Yep. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Oral Wealth Prosperity and Practice podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.NaviPathFinancial.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the episode. You can also check out our contact information in the description below. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of NaviPath Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security, or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Brian Swilling. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Brian Swilling or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. NaviPath Financial and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.